You are listening to the Fly the W670 podcast, season 3, episode 53. The Cubs have dug themselves quite a hole. Don't forget to listen, download, review. Most importantly, subscribe to the podcast, follow on all the socials, Fly the W670 on Twitter, Instagram, Fly the W on Facebook. Email us at flythew670@gmail.com. Well, unfortunately, Crawly, things in Milwaukee went about as we expected. The Cubs only win 1 of 3, and that was on Saturday. And that was no cakewalk either.
No, this was kind of their chance right now to really kind of say to themselves, okay, we know we're not in good shape, but let's start right now against Milwaukee, the division leading team. Let's start to make some noise. And they absolutely failed to do that.
Failed to do that is an understatement.
And Dustin, not only that, it's just the way that they played, the way that they lost. This is the best that you could do against your rival, one of your chief rivals, the team that's leading the division. That was the best effort you could put forward. I don't know.
Yeah, not necessarily the best effort, and things got started on the wrong foot on Friday night up in Milwaukee.
Yeah, not a lot of offense in this game as Jameson Taillon took on Colin Ray. All the action took place in the fourth inning. Top of the fourth, 1 out. Seiya Suzuki hits a solo home run to put the Cubs up 1-0. Dustin, I was just curious and looked this up. In 20 games at AmFam Miller, whatever you want to call it, Suzuki's slashing 328, 423, 582 with 4 home runs and 9 RBIs. So I don't know what it is. He likes hitting in Miller Park.
Yeah. Can we have another one of him, at least for the series against the Brewers, please?
Right. Ian Happ followed up Seiya's home run with a double. Christopher Morel was hit by a pitch, and Dansby singled to make it 2-0. Unfortunately, PCA hit into a double play to end the inning. Dustin, we've talked about this ad nauseum. Every time the Cubs seem to get a run or a little rally, they just give it right up immediately. And that's
immediately, right? That's what happened again, right?
Yep. Yeah, it happens again. Jameson Taillon was pitching well. He walks William Contreras to lead off the inning. Never a good thing. Yelich is going to ground into a forced out. So Yelich is out at second. Contreras is out at second. Yelich now takes over at first. He would steal second base because, Cubs catchers cannot throw anyone out. Taillon has the next batter, Sal Frelick, behind in the count 1-2. So Jameson Taillon's got him right where he wants him, 1-2. Miguel Amaya gets called for catcher's interference again. How often is this going to keep happening?
Yeah, it seems way too much. There must be some sort of new aspect of this, something that we're going to have to actually ask Tommy Hodby about next week for sure.
Absolutely. And so the next batter, Rhys Hoskins, hits one off Taillon's glove. It wasn't one of those weird deflecty ones that would have been an out. It would have been a base hit either way. But now you got the bases loaded. Rookie Jackson Chourio, who we warned you about, that was on the hot list, is up to bat. Taillon gets ahead 1-2, but he throws a sweeper middle. Jackson Chourio hits it to left, and Happ just misses making a sensational grab. It is a grand slam, and the Cubs trail 4-2. That'll be the first grand slam of Chourio's career. The Brewers' last 5 at-bats with the bases loaded this week, 4 grand slams. I didn't know you were allowed to do that, Dustin. I thought you were supposed to.
That should be illegal. And the skipper up there, the skipper of the Brewers, goofed around, and he said he found the recipe out on the Google machine. Basically, he found the recipe for how to hit with the bases loaded on the internet.
Can you share it with his old friend Craig Counsell? Because I know is
I don't know if they're friends anymore. At least not during the season. At least not during the season.
All right, so Cubs are down 4-2. Plenty of game left, right? Not the end of the world. It's end of the fourth, fifth inning. You still got half a game left. But we talked about how the Brewers bullpen is third best in all of baseball. Top of the 6th, Cody Bellinger reaches on an error by Colin Rea. Suzuki strikes out, so you got 1 out. Ian Happ's at the plate. Bellinger's running on the pitch. Happ hits it to center and is caught by center fielder Blake Perkins in mid-center. I don't know what happened here. If Bellinger forgot how many outs there were, or he just didn't look to see what was happening in the outfield after Happ made contact, or if he didn't look at Willie Harris or what was going on, but he gets doubled off first to end the inning. I don't know what happened there. It's ridiculous.
Absolutely. It's beyond ridiculous. It's just, it's unforgivable almost.
Yeah. What happened? Did he forget how many outs there were?
He had to have forgotten. That's the only way you could look at it. I mean, that's the only thing that could have happened.
Marquis put this stat up here. Most outs made on the bases this season. That's Cubs with 35 outs made on the bases. They have a MLB high 15 outs on the bases at home plate.
Crazy.
So most outs out of any team on the bases, most outs getting thrown out at home plate. Just embarrassing.
You know what that equals? 11.5 behind your rival. That's what that equals.
Yep. Top of the seventh, Cubs load the bases with 2 outs. Should be easy, right? Grand slam. Milwaukee does it all the time. Pinch hitter Patrick Wisdom hits one just shy of the warning track. The Cubs would go on to lose this one 4-2. Dustin, I was thinking about you because Jameson Tyone actually qualified for there was a quality start. Yeah. He went 6 innings.
That has to be reworked. It's got to move up to 7. It has to be 7. I mean, I get the unearned runs. I get that, but no.
So that was 6 innings. He gave up 4 runs on 4 hits, but only 3 of those runs were earned because of the catcher's interference error on Amaya.
He gave up a grand slam. He gave up a ball. He allowed a ball to be hit over the wall. It was and 4 runs scored. It's awful. We try not to swear on this podcast. At least I'll say I try not to swear. But that's a bunch of hot garbage. That's an awful stat. The quality start is a awful stat.
Well, he also had 1 walk and 5 Ks. But Dustin, here's what irritates me. Colin Rea went 5.1 innings pitch, and we talked about him in the last episode. He gave up only 2 runs on 3 hits, all of them in the 4th inning, 8 Ks. And you're saying, Crawly, what's the big deal? 8 Ks. Colin Rea came into the game, Dustin, with a 15.6% strikeout rate. Struck out 15% of the batters he faced. He's not a strikeout pitcher. Right. Strikes out the side twice and gets an additional 2 strikeouts. He struck out half the Cubs hitters he faced. Yeah. This is not Beans. This is a guy.
I don't know why they're swinging so hard. They've got no slug as it is. So just try to make some soft contact. Try to get something going. It's so frustrating right now. They are the most disappointing team in the National League, and I don't even think it's close.
How about this, Dustin? The Cubs have lost 10 out of their last 11 series openers. Hey, they beat the White Sox, worst team in baseball. But other than that, every time they start a series, they've lost 10 out of 11 times.
Well, then I suggest to all of our podcast listeners and subscribers and downloaders that Tuesday night, go to your favorite account that you might do some sports wagering with and go ahead and bet that the Cubs will lose the opener to the Phillies.
Now, Dustin, you did mention a little bit, so I sat there and I'm listening to the post game, right? And of course the Cubs have, the guru of managers, the guy who knows it all, Craig Counsell. So I'm sitting here, I got my pen ready to find out what Craig says needs to get done. So Counsell, take it away. What do the Cubs need to do to win?
I think we got to plan on scoring more runs. We've got to score more runs. No question about it. That's a part of this for sure. And it takes kind of all areas to win a baseball game, and we're not doing that enough right now.
I'm going to write this down. That was your great advice. Score more
runs. So when he was in the interview with Jed Hoyer, Carter Hawkins, maybe the owner, Tom Ricketts, might have walked by. So what's the recipe for success? Outscore your opponents. Thank you. Okay.
We learned a lot there, right? Mm-hmm. Game 2 is what we thought was going to be the one. I was pretty confident in this one. Steele versus Tobias Myers. I thought, God, please, Justin's got to get a win. It only took 2 pitches for the Cubs to jump out a lead. Nico Horner hit a leadoff single on the very first pitch, and then Michael Busch hit a 2-run homer on the first pitch he sees. Cubs up 2-0. Let's celebrate, right?
Just like Justin, that, the Chicago Cubs with a 2-0.
And they held that lead. Justin held them down at least a shutdown inning. He's on the mound searching for that first win of the season. But the reason he hasn't gotten wins isn't because he isn't pitching well, but his offense and defense keep letting him down. No difference on Saturday. In the 3rd inning, Sal Frelick hits a single that deflects off the glove of Morel into left field. I think a good third baseman makes that play, but you can argue either way on that one. Then Blake Perkins bunts one that lands into Steele's glove for the first out. Sal Frelick steals second base because Cubs catchers can't throw anyone out. Then Andrew Monasterio hits a grounder to Steele, who turns around and throws it to Nico, and they have Frelick in a rundown in between second and third. Nico is running him towards third, but he throws the ball to Morel too late. Frelick gets by him. Not only that, Morel drops the ball. So now you have runners at second and third. Frelick's at third, and while all this ridiculous is going on, Monasterio gets to second. So how do you not know how to get a rundown going this late into the season? Bryce Terang hit a bunt to Steele that he just couldn't make the play on cleanly. Frelick scores to cut the lead to 2-1. Runners at the corner. Terang steals second because Cubs catchers can't throw anyone out. William Contreras singles to tie the game before Justin Steele strikes out Yelich and Willie Adames to end the inning. We've been talking about the frustration we've seen from Steele the last few starts, and it finally boiled over. Steele was seen going into the dugout, and the lip readers, at least on Twitter, had him saying twice, "Wake the F up, wake the F up." And finally, someone says what needed to be said, Dustin.
Yeah, I don't mind that kind of leadership, if you will. I mean, somebody had to say it. Somebody, and it's not going to be Craig Counsell, apparently. He'll just say, "Hey, guys, if we want to win today, let's score a few more runs than the other team." All right, coach.
Absolutely unexcusable. Here's what Justin had to say about it after the game.
I mean, I love every single person in that locker room. I know how good we can be. I know, what it takes and stuff. And, yeah, it definitely comes from a good place. It comes from a place of love and, passion, I want to win baseball games. And that's what I show up every day to do.
So I kind of laugh because it comes from love, wake the F up. It comes from love. But it was the end thing that really got me that he said, "I come here to win baseball games." And Justin Steele does not like to lose. And this has not been one start. It was one day and oops, we made a couple errors. It has been 4 or 5 of his last starts where the Cubs have played like absolute garbage. This is a guy that's an all-star last year, and he has pitched very, very well since kind of coming back after hurting his hamstring at the beginning of the year. He does not have one win, Dustin, and we're on July 1st, and it sure as hell ain't his fault.
No, it is not. It is not his fault. There's no doubt about that. Yeah, this team needs some kind of shot in the arm. I'm hoping that they all get off their feet today. They relax a little bit because the Phillies are coming to town. And even though the Phillies have a couple of injuries, we'll talk about that later, they're still the Phillies.
Right. The Cubs retook the lead in the top of the fourth, but it wasn't easy with 2 on. Dansby Swanson grounds into a double play. Ian Happ moves to third, but PCA had a clutch 2-out single to give the Cubs a 3-2 lead. The Brewers come back in the bottom of the inning. Jackson Churio doubled to lead off the inning. Rhys Hoskins singles to put runners at the corners, and Sal Frelick grounded out to tie the game. Cubs load the bases with 2 outs top of the fifth. Christopher Morel strikes out to end the threat. Steele goes 6 innings pitch and gave up 3 runs on 7 hits and 5 Ks, and once again does not qualify for the win. Big Luke Little comes into the game in the 7th. He got the first 2 outs, but gave up back-to-back singles, put runners at the corners. But then the Brewers tried to get a little cute. Terang attempted to steal second, kind of the slow steal, so the catcher throws it to second. Monasterio's halfway down third. Little threw to first. Nito caught it and tagged out Monasterio to get out of the inning. So Little's fired up. So I thought it was some dumb base running on Milwaukee.
Yeah, he was about as fired up as Steele was walking off the mound.
Absolutely. In the 8th inning, Seiya Suzuki led off with a walk, and Ian Happ hit a 2-run homer. Cubs take a 5-3 lead. That takes us in the 9th, where Hector Neris comes in to close it out. Immediately gave up a single to Rhys Hoskins, but then Sal Frelick grounded out. He walked pinch hitter Jake Bauers. Tying run is now at first. But thanks to some very generous calls by the home plate umpire, Neris strikes out the next 2 batters for his 100th save. Dustin, even though they won the game, runners in scoring position, 1 for 12, left 7 men on base. Bad idea when you have a bullpen as bad as the Cubs. Second, even though Neris got the save, another tightrope act. He gave up another single. He gave up another walk. Too many runners getting on. And again, all you need is one, ball to hit in the gap. And all of a sudden you blow another save. Okay. So he cannot be a closer anymore. He's got to stop being put in that role. Can you imagine if they would have blown that one?
All right. That might have been the end of it for him if he had blown it. I can't even imagine though. Who did you want to take the ball that day? I mean,
I keep saying that I'd like to see Tyson Miller. I think Tyson Miller is somebody that really intrigues me. I think Porter Hodge. You know what? I'd rather see any one of those guys right now than Hector Neris come out here.
all right. All right. I'm not going to disagree with you. I mean, but Hector Neris needed to get into the game. He needed to get back out there. He's on the it's if he's on your roster and in your pen, you got to get him out there and get him doing something.
Low leverage situations.
All right, moving forward. All right, talking about low leverage situations. Not the Cubs all of a sudden can win this series on Sunday afternoon, and we thought maybe Kyle Hendricks could find a little magic, keep the professor going, and maybe the pump up from the Cubs pitcher Justin Steele would rub off, and the Cubs could get something going. And it got off to a good start.
Right. Nico Horner hits a leadoff home run on the second pitch he sees. Cody Bellinger will also single in the first. They would also draw a walk. But that single by Bellinger and the first inning was the last hit the Cubs had all day. Freddie Peralta went 7 innings pitch, gave up 1 run on 2 hits, 2 walks, 8 Ks. Dustin for the game, 2 hits, 3 walks, 5 total base runners for the Cubs. Only one time did the Cubs have a runner in scoring position in the first inning, and they didn't drive him in. Apparently, they did not get the memo from Craig, score more runs.
We should can we tweet that out to everybody?
I cannot for the life of me figure out. Freddie Peralta is a really good pitcher, but that's it. Two hits. I mean, unbelievable. We talked about Kyle Hendricks. He had 3 good performances, 1 against St. Lou coming out of the pen, and then 2 good starts against the Giants. But he always seems to pitch well against the Giants. He's looking to make it number 4. Things look good in the first 3 innings. But then the Brewers put up a touchdown in the 4th. William Contreras led off with an infield single to third before Christian Yelich homered to put the Brewers up 2-1. Willie Adames struck out for the first out. Hendricks walks Jake Bowers, right? But then Rhys Hoskins hits a fly ball that Ian Happ completely misplays. Which way did it go? Looked like he was doing circles out there. That should have been the second out of the inning, runner at first. Instead, you still only have 1 out and runners at first and second. The next batter, Sal Frelick singled to make it 3-1. Jackson Chourio singled to load the bases. And as the Brewers, Hendricks will strike out Andrew Monasario, which should have been the 3rd out of the inning, mind you. Bases still loaded, 2 outs, and the Brewers do what the Brewers do. Bryce Terang hits a grand slam to make it 7-1. The Brewers' 5th grand slam in 8 games. Hendricks is done after 3 2/3 inning, gave up 7 runs on 7 hits with a walk and 3 Ks. That's good morning, good afternoon, good night. Cubs lose another series to another NL Central opponent. This is what Happ had to say about his mistake.
Had a good beat on it, and it turned. It moved a long way, kind of towards left center there, on its way down. Body wasn't in a great spot. I kind of thought it was going to be more up against the wall over there, and it got a little turned around. Obviously, not my best moment out there, and puts Kyle in a tough spot where he's got first and second, and not another out on the board, make him get 4 outs in an inning. Stuff like that you don't want to happen. Frustrating place to be for the group. We're obviously not close to where we want to be. Just over the halfway point, there's a lot of baseball left. I think we have to find a way to string a couple series together here. Find a way to, it's a game at a time, but we need to win a series and then kind of get on a little bit of a run here and win some of those. We've struggled to win the first game of the series. Had a couple games, like today, where it's got a chance to win the series and get some momentum going and don't get it done. So we're going to have to string a few wins together and see what we can do.
When does it become too late, Dustin, I guess is my question. When does it become too
late?
Plenty of time.
August 1st, I think. I think you have to give them till August 1st, which will be the trade deadline is July 30th, right? This is a tough month. We went through it. We went through the schedule on Mully and Haw. And again, they play the games on the field. They don't play them on paper. It's not video games. But this is not an easy run. And you get a week off because of the All-Star break.
Yeah. I mean, when you talk about the month of July, you want to go through the Phillies. Angels aren't that great. Orioles, Cardinals, who they haven't been able to beat. The Diamondbacks have been so-so this year. You got the Brewers again, the Royals, and the Reds. So it's not
a cakewalk. Not a cakewalk.
No. And so you take a look at this series. What did you have? You had someone forget how many outs there were. You had runners in scoring position that you couldn't get through. You had You had mistakes getting thrown out on the bases. You couldn't complete a rundown. How are you turning this around? You had 2 hits on Sunday. That's it. How are you turning this around? I guess that would be my follow-up question. How, Ian, when you have shown nothing in the last 8 weeks to make me believe you're going to turn this around?
You are listening to the Fly the W670 podcast. It's episode number 53 of season 3. The Cubs have dug themselves into a hole. Don't forget to listen, download, review, subscribe to the Fly the W podcast. Leave us a 5-star review, please. You can also email us, flythew670@gmail.com. And don't forget, you can watch Crawly and I, that's right, on the 670 The Score YouTube page. Jed Hoyer Crawly recently sat down with the Cubs beat writers. Let's listen in and react to what we hear from Jed.
Would you take Natoli in Iowa if he clears waivers, or is that just kind of a convenience thing?
The moves would be obviously some of this is out of necessity, but just how much of the bullpen is it just trying also to kind of unlock the right formula?
Yeah, I mean, most of what we've been doing is just not a necessity right now. It seems like these guys keep getting hit there, kind of one after another, and I think it should be a good opportunity for some guys to end up in leverage spots that they may not have been in, and maybe that really helps them in the future. But that's not the intent. I feel like I was talking to Nick for 20 minutes going through the medical report on what guys are doing, and you hope to get guys back and get them healthy, and then that starts to alleviate the burden on these guys a little bit. But I mean, the season's, you can't pause it. You got to keep going, and you got to keep plugging guys in, and hopefully these 2 guys can help stabilize things a little bit. But it's it is what it is. You got to keep working through it every day.
So as we're looking at this here, Dustin, he's talking about some of the moves, and we'll get to those that the Cubs made. Finally, Ethan Roberts gets called up, but they have had a lot of injuries. I will put that when you talk about the bullpen and people get mad about Jed and fire Jed and all this stuff, the bullpen, I wouldn't say is 100% his fault. You have a lot of guys there. The injuries have affected them, no doubt about it. And so that's kind of what he's talking about is guys are going to be getting experiences and opportunity. Again, Porter Hodge, Luke Little, you have a window right now where you can show the Cubs what you got, but it's not because they want to do that. It's out of necessity with injuries.
Yeah, the injuries have been a thing, but everybody deals with injuries, right? Hector Neris was brought here for a reason. They couldn't, but even the guys they had that were injured, Crawly, that went down with injuries for the most part stunk, right? Most of them weren't living up to what they had hoped they would be, and then they got injured. So,
I
would like to see Julian Merriweather. I would like to see Julian Merriweather and a healthy Julian Merriweather in this bullpen. See how that would affect the bullpen. Like,
right.
Leiter Jr. Started going downhill and he was hurt.
But the
last
question is,
year's closer, he stunk all season and then he got hurt.
Well, the question is, what were they hurt before? And that was what was causing them to stink. That's what you got to look at. That's where it gets tricky. And so you lost a lot of these guys, and I can't remember the total. It's like over 14, 15 bullpen trips to the IL. It's been nonstop. So Yency Almonte's another guy that was looking really good.
And we won't see him again. We won't see him again this year.
Yeah. So it has been an issue. So
how are you viewing the stretch leading up to the deadline, given how the team's performed?
Important. I mean, obviously, I think when I look at this 2-month stretch, I think that this has sort of been a sense of, okay, we'll turn it around, and it is undoubtedly it has dragged on far longer than we expected or we hoped, or we need to play a lot better. Now we've dug ourselves a hole, and we have to dig out of that hole. And obviously, yes, it's important that we do that. In this next whatever that is, I don't know how many days it is, 33 days or whatever we have until the deadline. You have to make hard decisions sometimes. That said, I don't have an explanation for why we sort of hit so well in April, and we've had 2 consecutive months of poor performance. Honestly, we haven't hit. We haven't been able to stretch games out. That's been a huge factor, and we're gonna have to hit. We're gonna have to do that. We have to break out of this slump, and we're gonna have to play well offensively. And there's certainly time to do that, but we need to do that. Obviously, it's an important stretch.
Knowing the variance of performance this sport can bring, is it still?
I want to talk about a couple things really quick there. He finally admits that this has gone on way longer than they thought it was, right?
Yes.
This has been 8 weeks, Dustin, 8 weeks of a team that cannot hit. And I just don't get what the fact he said it, he's at a loss. I think everybody's at a loss as to why all of a sudden can Cody Bellinger not hit a home run? When's the last time you've seen Cody Bellinger hit an extra base hit?
Right. Yeah. I mean, and again, you think about like a guy maybe that would bring you back something. I mean, who does anybody want? Why would you want any Cubs regular players in your daily lineup?
Right.
Unless you suffered an injury.
You look at a couple guys, but you're not going to trade PCA. You're not going to, you're looking at veteran players that you would probably trade so young guys can come up. And again, 2 of them have no trade clauses in Happ and Suzuki. Obviously no one's going to take Swanson in that contract. What's Swanson hitting? Barely hitting 200. Christopher Morel under 200. It's a disaster. So this is the time, where now you're going to start getting questions about selling.
Like shocking that you're looking up at every team in the standings in this division.
Yeah, I mean, I think that. I think that when I look at April and how we performed, and looked at the rest of it, I am very surprised. I felt like sort of like 2 weeks turned into 4, turned into 6, it's turned into 8, and that's the reality, right? And I think you weather that storm a little bit for a while, and you sort of get through it, and we had some games over 500 to play with, and then it just hasn't ended, and I think that's the hard part, and I think that is a huge factor, and we haven't been able to spread any games out, and then obviously our bullpen has struggled and has been super banged up now, and so that combination is dangerous. But I mean, I really do feel like there is huge variance, and I think you don't have to look that far around baseball to see teams that have been struggling and caught fire. I mean, the Mets were 11 under, I think, at one point, and they've played exceptionally well, and it's a funny sport that way. You never know when a team's going to get hot and turn it around. We did it last year when certainly no one was expecting us to do that. But yeah, I mean, I think that the best way I can say it is just dragged on a lot longer than we had thought, and now we've walked ourselves into a really tough stretch of schedule.
Is there anything you can learn from?
So right there, he mentioned that the strength of schedule that the Cubs have up. And I wish he would really stop bringing up last season. Congratulations, you did it last season. But again, it cost you because you ran out of gas when it counted most. And so you've done this now a second year in a row where you're at the bottom here, Dustin. He mentioned it. You're looking up. Did you think that we would be behind the Pittsburgh Pirates?
No. And they're definitely not built to win right now. They're not trying to lose, but they're also not going for it at this point. Right? I mean, the Cubs were built to at least go for it in this division. Now, maybe all of us, you and I included, all the fans and all the experts underestimated this division. Right? We thought there would be a much bigger drop off when the great skipper Craig Counsell left Milwaukee, plus a couple of guys left, obviously. Not so much.
Yeah, I mean, you're behind Cincinnati, Pittsburgh. I mean, St. Louis, who everyone kind of had picked in first place. So, I mean, at this point, not good.
This down stretch of offense, as far as maybe don't take too much away from 1 year of offensive upswing, or is that taking too much away?
It's a really good question. I don't know if I can answer that in the moment because I don't know what the next 3 months are going to bring, right? I feel like that's a question it's a really good, thoughtful question when the season's over or when you have time to look back and say, like, okay, this is what I learned. I think, if all of a sudden we turn it around, this weekend or next week and, you look back like, oh, that was probably some random, 2-run stretch where everyone struggled. But, like, if it goes on all season or if it goes on for a lot longer, you might look at it differently. So I think it's a good question. I think it's a fair question to ask at a later point. But I think right now it's more just like trying to search for answers and then trying to look at like that's kind of a bigger picture thing that I just don't think we can answer until we have a little bit more information.
You said.
So he's talking a little bit about a 1-year variance. And I think that I can't say what the reporter was trying to ask, but I wonder how much of that has to do with Cody Bellinger. Cody Bellinger was a guy that was the comeback player of the year last year. And you wondered, hey, did the Cubs, did Dustin Kelly, did somebody unlock something? And hey, great. He's hitting 273. So Cody Bellinger has the highest average right now. But this is a list of people that have more home runs than Cody Bellinger on the Cubs: Christopher Morel, Ian Happ, Michael Busch, Seiya Suzuki. And Dansby Swanson's one behind Cody Bellinger. Okay. And so when I take a look at that variance right there, when you take a look at Cody Bellinger and home runs and all that stuff, Cody Bellinger led this team with Morel, 26 home runs last year. And this year, again, he 4th or 5th on the team. And I think we said, okay, he would have had to have been the guy that scared you. Him and Christopher Morel. They were the thunder in the bat. And Christopher at least is bringing thunder. He ain't hitting his weight, but at least he's bringing some thunder. No thunder from Cody Bellinger. No fear.
No. Don't let Scott Boras know that.
How much of that though was, so I think that Cody's kind of a slow starter, and that happens with some guys that are slow starters. I just wonder how much that affected him this year of not showing up to camp until the very end. I know some people say, it doesn't matter that much. It's more for pitchers, but I wonder in my own head how much that had affected him.
Yeah.
Sorry, just want to follow up on that.
Well, are we at a point yet? I feel like we asked you this. Are we at a point yet where it's like we got to make some changes on this offense?
Yeah, listen, we've had those conversations a lot. What can we do? Both, personnel, lab construction, all the training habits, meetings. I think we have all those discussions all the time. So it's not as if there isn't activity in that, but there hasn't been the obvious trade. It's hard. We talk about this every time. That's not really an open trade market, and I think that the sort of internal options don't when we look at them, they don't really feel like they may feel like we are changing things, but we may not be changing things for the better. So we have those discussions, and like I said, the idea that this isn't a topic of discussion all day is, of course it is. That's what we're thinking through and dealing with, and like I said, hopefully these things can come together and we start to score. Yeah, ideally.
So he's right in the fact that there's nothing that they can do. They're some of their best prospects are blocked on the corner outfielders. PCA's up. Busch has been one of the good surprises of the season at first. Nico, you're that there. Dansby isn't going anywhere. Third base, I don't even know, even in the minors, if there's really a good option for third base right now. And then catcher Moises Ballesteros is hitting the hell out of the ball. Could he be a potential DH that you bring up? Don't know. But as far as catching, Moises isn't at that point where he's a catcher that can be there. There's no trades like we've talked about that anyone can make. So I don't know what the Cubs can do other than wait for guys to get healthy.
About it, Crawly. Got to wait for guys to get healthy. Maybe you take a guy in and out and try to jumpstart the offense a little bit with somebody from Iowa or somebody from Tennessee, just to give somebody kind of a kick in the pants or a wake-up call. It's a lot of stuff going on with the Cubs right now.
It comes together, the trade deadline. What's the way you want it to look? You mentioned, hopefully you don't have to make hard decisions. What do the hard decisions look like? Is that looking ahead to next season at the trade deadline?
I think
how do you kind of define that?
I think the way I would define it is when I look at last year, it wasn't just a purely emotional thing, and it was very much based on playoff odds and where we were and how we felt about the team, and so there's some art to that. There's some real science of okay, where are we and what decisions are we going to make? And I really don't. Like I said, we're still in June. I really don't want to go there, but it's you ask the question of there is a point at which that we have to do that. But like I still feel like again, for a third of the season we hit, for 2/3 of the season we haven't, and I believe that that can come around. I think that we do need to keep grinding and finding different arms for the bullpen. We need to get some guys healthy, honestly, and get some guys back. I think that will go a long way. But yeah, I think all those are things that we're talking about all the time. But I don't. So when you talk about, I don't think it's time yet for that full conversation. But it's just the reality that we have to play better in July.
So Dustin, I got a question for you because he mentioned last year, and that's been brought up numerous times. If you remember, the Cubs were 10 games under, and they were talking about being sellers, and they had some names to sell, like Cody Bellinger was having the comeback player of the year. Obviously, hindsight's 2020, and you always want your team to go for it. But was that Cubs little run that they made, I mean, would it have been better off last year if they just would have sold rather than buyers? Remember, they bought Jeimer Candelario. They kept Cody Bellinger. There was Marcus Stroman was another name that was on this team that could have been given up and gotten some assets. I mean, do you look back at that now and say with some regret we should have sold, or is that just hindsight?
No, I always like, this is Chicago. This isn't Pittsburgh. It's not Cleveland. It's not Minnesota. You go for it when you have the opportunity to go for it. The interesting one, though, Crawly, is that the first guy you named there, Jeimer Candelario, something must have happened behind the scenes. Like, how this offense could be just a tick better, like if he was playing third base every day and Morel was DHing. Honestly.
Yeah, I mean,
you could be a better defensive and offensive team. So, and he's not making any kind of money. Like, what had to have happened? Because they didn't even. Bruce Levine reported that they didn't even talk to his representation.
I have no idea, and I've never heard anything about Jeimer Candelario of being a bad teammate or a bad presence in the clubhouse. I think they just really, truly believe that Christopher Morel was going to get his time. He was going to get his shot, and
they misevaluated that, and they thought maybe they could hide him behind everybody else. But Michael Busch hasn't been firing on all cylinders. Dansby Swanson's been awful. He's been terrible this year. He's had there's been a couple of nice defensive plays, but overall he's been awful. Ian Happ's been average at best. Cody Bellinger average at best. Seiya Suzuki below average, maybe average at best. The catching position is awful. And Nico Horner might be the best player like on a day-to-day basis that the Cubs have, but he's not a guy that's going to carry you into October.
Absolutely not.
This is season 3, episode 53 of the Fly the W670 podcast. The Cubs have dug themselves into quite a hole. Don't forget to give us one of those 5-star reviews. You can email us, flythew670gmail.com. You can watch us on 670 The Score's YouTube page. Don't forget to listen, download, review. All right, Crawly. So after another series lost, where are the Cubs in the standings on July 1?
In the basement, Milwaukee first place, 49-34. St. Louis 42-40. Pittsburgh 39-43, Cincinnati 39-44, 10 games back, and the Cubs 39-45, 6 games under 500, 10.5 back from the Milwaukee Brewers. Not great.
No, not great. Are we sure on that 10.5? I thought it was 11.5.
It might be. That's what last one I pulled up there. So sometimes it gets a little bit goofy on MLB.com. So when either way, it's not a good situation.
Here's the thing. They entered the series against the Brewers trailing by 11.5. So I think that they're still trailing by 11.5. They are, according to the 4-letter network, they're 11.5 behind. They're 39-46. They walked into that series trailing by 11.5. They're walking out by 10.5. They're walking out trailing by 11.
And not only that, Dustin, as we suspected, we talked about this on the last episodes, the Cubs did not have any position players make it through the first round of voting. Any Cubs that make the All-Star team will either be pitchers, or maybe if somebody gets injured or can't play, then maybe I
want everybody to, I want there to be no Cubs on this All-Star team. I want them all to have a day off. If Shota goes, okay, fine, whatever. But otherwise, take the week off. Get away from it, shut it down. Figure it out when you get back.
I think you're going to get your wish. We did have some roster moves during the Brewers series. Ethan Roberts, friend of the pod, we had him on about a month ago. Tremendous story coming back from Tommy John surgery. He pitched well. Obviously, he didn't pitch in high leverage situations in Milwaukee, but good to see him. Jorge Lopez, who had a few good seasons before getting DFA'd by the Mets for throwing his glove after an argument with an ump in a disastrous press conference, was also called up, also had a little bit of action this weekend. So to make room for those guys, Keegan Thompson on the 15-day IL with a right rib fracture. And Vinny Natoli, who was added to the 40-man roster last time we talked, was DFA'd.
That's a strange one, but nice to know you, Vinny. No problem. All right, so the Phillies come to town, and they are having an unbelievable start after having an unbelievable season last year.
And an unbelievable season the year before that. The Phillies, see what happens when you spend a little bit of money for star players.
Stars.
Yeah.
Stars.
The Phillies entered last season as the defending National League champions. They finished the month of May in last place, but the Phillies always seem to turn it around in June. They finished in second place in the NL East with a record of 90-72. They beat Miami in the NL Wild Card Series. They beat their rival Braves in the NLDS before losing to the Diamondbacks in 7 games in the NLCS. In 2023, the Cubs lost 5 of the 6 games they played against the Phillies. In the offseason, the Phillies didn't do much other than taking care of in-house business. They re-signed Aaron Nola, extended Zach Wheeler, so they kept the pitching intact. Bryce Harper was permanently moved to first base, and they did sign Whit Merrifield to kind of be a jack of all trades. They did not re-sign Craig Kimbrell or Rhys Hoskins, who is now in Milwaukee. This year, Dustin, the Phillies got off to a good start to the season, winning 20 games in April and 20 games in May.
What's that like?
They're not going to win 20 games in June. So they're struggling. They got some injury troubles. They're 5-5 in their last 10 games. The Cubs will not see Bryce Harper or Kyle Schwarber. Both of those guys are on the IL. So a little bit lucky there. You know that obviously, we all know Kyle Schwarber very well, but also the fact of the matter is, Bryce Harper is playing at an unbelievable clip. He got the most all-star votes from the NL. So they did just win the last series against the Marlins. They had to come from behind on a big deficit yesterday, but won 7-6. So, Trey Turner had a great game. And so that's where the Phillies are coming into this game. When we
Tail of the tape time, Crawly. Tail of the tape.
Tail of the tape, when we take a look at this here, obviously the Phillies are in nearly the top 10 in every category, while the Cubs are nearly in the bottom third of every category. Batting average, Phillies are third, hitting 259, while the Cubs are 25th, hitting 228. Slug, Phillies are sixth with a 421 slug. Cubs are 25th, 368. Runners in scoring position, the Phillies are seventh, 272. The Cubs are 28th, 215. Starting pitching, the Phillies are first place, best pitching, starting pitching in baseball, 296 ERA, while the Cubs are 11th with 376. Reliever ERA, the Phillies are 5th with a 334 reliever ERA. The Cubs 21st with a 432 ERA. And then in defense, the Phillies are 11th with 20 defensive runs saved, while the Cubs are 22nd, -7 runs saved.
All right. Well, that tail of the tape really leans towards the Phillies. Game 1, Tuesday night. Hayden Wisniewski taking the ball for the Cubs.
I will be there. I will be there Tuesday night.
Tomorrow night. All right. Is there a special giveaway?
No. I'm heading there before heading back to the Cheddar Curtain north of Cheddar Curtain to get some fireworks and some beers and some boating in.
All right. Now, will you be north of the Cheddar Curtain? We're gonna, now that you brought it up, we'll do a little. Are you gonna be up in the Cheddar Curtain area for the 4th of July?
Yeah.
Okay.
Got
so no Cubs on the 4th at Wrigley for you, huh?
No. I sit on a boat, I drink beer, and I watch fireworks. And it's not like the Cubs are hitting a lot of fireworks at Wrigley, right?
Exactly.
Hayden is 2-4 with a 3.60 ERA in 21 games. He's made 4 starts and has 44 strikeouts in 45 innings. Hayden's been mainly coming out of the pen, but because of injuries, he started 1 game in April, 2 games in May, and he started on June 26th versus the Giants. He went 4 innings, gave up 3 runs on 2 hits in 4 innings, gave up back-to-back jacks. The home run ball has been a major issue for Hayden. He has given up 6 home runs in the last 7 outings. Hayden is 1-0 in 2 appearances against the Phillies with a 1.93 ERA. Hayden's only had 1 start against the Phillies, and most of the Phillies have only a handful of bats versus Hayden Wesniewski. He's going to take on Michael Mercado. He's a rookie right-hander who was a second-round draft pick of the Rays. Mercado has only pitched 1 inning in a Major League Baseball, and this will be his first start, Dustin.
Yeah, well, that should be a good thing, but sometimes it's when they haven't ever seen the guy that ends up being a bad thing. Listen, Hayden's just got to limit the home run ball, right? If he could just limit the home run ball, I think there might be something there. At certain points he looks good, but then he ends up giving away the biggest thing, and that's the home run. They'll kill you.
Yep. Game 2, left-handed pitcher Shota Imanaga versus right-handed pitcher Zach Wheeler. Shota is 7-2.
Game. I mean, that's the game on Wednesday.
That'll be a fun one to watch.
That's like an all-star caliber pitchers. That's great.
Shota is 7-2 with a 3.07 ERA and 15 starts with 84 strikeouts and 85 innings pitched. 2 starts to go, Shota got ambushed by the Mets, gave up 10 runs on 11 hits and 3 innings of work. He bounced back against the Giants, going 6 innings pitched and gave up 3 runs on 5 hits. Phillies have never seen Shota before. Wheeler is 9-4 with a 2.73 ERA and 17 starts, 112 strikeouts and 105 innings pitched.
Oof.
Just like Shota, Wheeler's had a great season, but there's been a blip 3 starts ago when he gave up 8 runs on 9 hits in 4 1/3 innings. But since then, he's given up 1 run in 7 innings versus Arizona on June 22nd. And in his last start, he gave up 2 runs in 6 2/3 against Miami. Wheeler's 2-2 lifetime against the Cubs with a 3.66 ERA in 8 games started. Dansby Swanson is 6 for 39 against Wheeler. Bellinger's 5 for 13. Nico 3 for 8.5 is 3 for 7. Zach features a 4-seamer, sinker, and sweeper. Game 3 takes us to right-hander Jameson Taillon versus left-handed pitcher Christopher Sanchez. Taillon's 4-4 with a 3.03 ERA in 13 games started with 58 strikeouts and 74 1/3 innings pitched. JMO had a good month of June, giving up no runs against the Rays, 2 runs against the Cardinals, and 1 run against the Mets. He was also good in his last start, but he made 1 mistake. Grand slam to Jackson Chourio cost him the game. Jameson, though, Dustin, is 1-4 lifetime against the Phillies with an ERA of 8.67 in 7 games started. Trey Turner's 3 for 15 against Taillon. Whit Merrifield is 5 for 19. And Nick Castellanos, former Cub, 3 for 7.
Remember him? Didn't want to pay him. Let's go get Shota him. And let's go get, who was it? Seiya Suzuki instead.
Seiya Suzuki. Now, Christopher Sanchez is a 27-year-old lefty. He pitched a handful of games in 2021 and 2022, and then he worked as a swingman for the Phillies in 2023. This season is Sanchez's first full season as a starter. He's 6-3 with a 2.41 ERA in 16 games started, 79 strikeouts and 93 1/3 innings pitched. Sanchez gave up 1 run, Dustin, in his last 3 starts, and in his last start against the Marlins, he had a complete game 3-hit shutout. He has never faced the Cubs, and the only Cubs players that have faced him, Thomas Nido is 1 for 5. And
and Thomas Nido back behind that plate.
And Dansby had a 1 walk. He faced him 1 time. So that's it.
All right. Hot and not. I mentioned Nico Horner earlier. You've got Nico Horner and Michael Busch on the Cubs hot list.
Yep. Nico Horner right now is 8 for his last 25 with 2 home runs and 3 RBIs. Look at Nico, the power there. 320, 370, 560 slash line. Michael Busch is 5 for his last 20 with 1 home run and 3 RBIs. He's slashing 250, 400, 400. We've talked about Christopher Morel. He's pretty much been living on the cold list here. He's 2 for his last 18 with no home runs, no RBI, slashing 111, 333, slugging 111, Dustin. And then PCA is 2 for his last 19 with 2 RBIs. He's slashing 105, 190, 105.
Yeah, I don't know if you got to catch the national broadcast at all on Saturday, Crawly. The Tom Verducci was the color analyst on that game, and there was a moment in that game when PCA laid down a bunt, basically, and he's like, "That's like giving up an out." He killed them for doing that, and he said he's doing it because he's just not hitting. He has no faith right now in his own ability. The manager doesn't have any faith in his ability, so he's laying down a bunt in a situation where you should be swinging away after you had a leadoff double. But I digress. All right, so we know that 2 of the better players for the Phillies are not going to be playing at Wrigley Field. Kyle Schwarber and one of the best players in all of baseball won't be there either. That is disappointing. Now, again, it could be good for the Cubs. Obviously, that Bryce Harper's not in the lineup, but if you paid for these kind of tickets, you're paying for that star power. You're marking on your calendar that you want to go to see those two types of guys. So they're out. Who's hot? Who do the Cubs need to worry about?
I don't want to see Bryce Harper at Wrigley because it still pisses me off he's not a Cub. Could you imagine what would have happened if you would have had Bryce Harper and Chris Bryant and Javi Baez? If you just would have extended that, what might have happened? Who knows? Either way, Brandon Marsh is hot. 7 for his last 15 with the home run, 4 RBIs. He's slashing 467, 556, 800. Trey Turner, who is also in that class with Dansby Swanson, he's 8 for his last 25 with 2 RBIs. He's slashing 320, 70, 440. And Nick Castellanos, 7 for his last 23 with 4 RBIs, slashing 304, 385, 348. When you look at the hots and nots, you're looking at the Phillies. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, obviously, Harper's injured out of those 5, but you got 5 guys hitting over 300 in the last week.
I mean, do the Cubs have more than one?
No.
Do they have one? Do they even have one? Probably not.
Nico is hitting. I believe Nico's hitting over that. So
okay,
that Nico's 320. So that's the only one. So
my apologies to Nico Horner.
And then at the knot, it's when you think about the knot, a lot of these. I mean, there's only one everyday starter that's not on the knot list. That's Alex Bohm, third baseman, 3 for his last 23, 1 home run, 4 RBI, slashing 130. 154, 251. Whit Merrifield is 2 for his last 13. But again, these are more like the part-time split squad guys. Like all of their major guys are hitting.
All right, Crawly, I'll go first for the prediction. Please don't get swept. Just don't get swept. Okay, don't get swept. But as I'm looking at it, there's not necessarily a game that jumps off the page that they should win. I don't feel comfortable saying, oh well, game number 2 showed him, and I don't feel comfortable saying that against Zach Wheeler. The way the Cubs have been striking out and the way that guy strikes batters out, I can't feel comfortable in that. I mean, maybe game 3, Jameson Taillon, but again, he's not been good against them, right? He's 1-4